right, take two. Now you're not going to be able to see my face, but you can hear my voice. The Chromebook never would upload that video. Apologize about that. Today we're going to talk about the interactions between the biotic portions of an ecosystem. Remember, the biotic portions are like the animals, the plants, anything that's actually living. And so in a community, of course, they're in the same space and they interact with each other. Sometimes they harm each other, sometimes they help each other, but regardless, they have interactions. And so today we're going to talk about those interactions. Remember that an ecosystem is actually just a community with the abiotic factors considered. So the rainfall and the sun, temperature, all that stuff. So I'm using a Prezi today by a colleague of mine, David Konefke. I don't typically use his Prezis. They're really good, but they have way too much information. But I like this little portion of this one. But there's a little too much information. If you're taking notes off of this particular table that's in front of you right now, facilitation is not something we need to know. And we don't really need to know herbivory, although there is one part of that we'll talk about. So you can come back to the screen if you'd like. I'm going to go over each one of these individually, and then we'll be finished. I'm going to go very quickly today, so you may need to pause every once in a while. So competition is the first one we're going to do, and I don't know if you can see my mouse or not. I've never used this to video, so I'm not sure what you can see, but if you can see my mouse, it's showing you that this little symbol that says a / interaction, that little symbol is good for you to know. That means it's negative for species A, means it's a negative, like opposite of positive. So it's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. It's a negative for species A and it's a negative for species B. So competition actually makes it where both species are harmed. And so typically organisms try to avoid competition for resources. Now, sometimes you'll see this in between species, like two different species. So you'll see it's called interspecific, specifics referring to species, or sometimes you'll see that called interspecies competition. Or if it's within a species, we'll call it conspecific, or sometimes you'll see it INNER species, interspecies. So basically that'd be like two males of the same species fighting for a female, or two organisms from the same species, same population fighting for resources. And this interspecific or interspecies would be ones where two different, say a lizard and a snake, are both after the same mouse or something. And so that's interspecific or interspecies. Okay, so competition is pretty familiar to you. How organisms can avoid competition is having a niche. Having somewhere that they inhabit. Competition will actually decrease an organism's niche usually. So a fundamental niche is the maximum possible niche. So you see on the bottom picture here that these little barnacles can take up all of this room if they have it. But then when we introduce this blue Belenus barnacles, then they form a wee little niche. Each of them have their own, and that's what we'd call the realized niche. You just need to know kind of what a niche is, and that if there's competition involved, it'll probably shrink their niche just so that they don't compete. Okay, and so then effects of competition. So basically, whenever you have the effects of competition here, that means that they're fighting for the same resource. In this particular graph, this concentration of silicate is like a food source for these diatoms. And whenever they're alone, see this one's alone, then, and this one's alone over here. So whenever these two types of diatoms are alone, then they do really well. Put them together and one of them outcompetes the other. That's what this is showing here. So you're seeing where this one is not doing well and the other one is doing approximately the same as it did before. Sometimes neither one of them do very well when they're together. So that is pretty common to see that. So one way they can avoid competition is something called resource partitioning or niche partitioning. And that means they are taking up a little space that's away from each other, and they're like partitioning their resources so that that they don't end up competing, and they can each have, so they specialize. Okay, specialization can then lead to natural selection. Of course, everything can, seems like. So whenever they're by themselves, like these birds, there's this one I can't say, Fuliginosa, that's on Los Hermanos Island. It's got this range of beaks that's actually really similar to the size of the beak of the Fortis on Daphne. So you'll notice that when these are island names, by the way, Los Hermanos and Daphne. So whenever they're together, whenever they're apart on different islands, you can see their beaks are very similar in size. But when they are together, they form a little partition niche. And the Fortis goes for things that are bigger, like maybe large nuts that are hard to crack. And so because of that, over time, don't go all the mark on me. This is over time, the Fortis organisms that have the bigger beak depth are going to actually do better and then create more offspring like that. And so you're actually starting to see a diversifying from what they normally are. So the ones on Daphne and the ones on San Cristobal or Santa Maria are like getting to where if you put them back together, they may not be the same species anymore. If you'll remember how natural selection works, hopefully you do. And the same thing goes with this Fulliginosa, not sure, from Los Hermanos to Santa Maria and San Cristobal. You see that the beak is narrower, and so it's because they have partitioned away from the Fortis so that they have their own little niche and not competing with each other, and that's creating a selection event. Okay. All right, predation. So this is a plus minus. Predation is not parasitism. Predation means that they just hunts it down, it's prey, eats it. They don't live together. They don't have some relationship together. But one thing predation can drive is adaptations of the prey, and probably can drive them of the predator as well. But some of the adaptations of the prey would be like some sort of cryptic coloration. Try not to get seasick here as I go really fast. Where it's basically camouflage. Okay, and then poison dart frog looks poisonous. Is poisonous, smelly skunk. So they've got these colorations saying, leave me alone. Mimicry, of course, you can see that's little larva is mimicking a snake. And then the cuckoo bee, which is totally harmless, is mimicking the yellow jacket. Natural selection, of course, would favor the ones that look like something that's venomous or dangerous so that the predator won't eat it. And then they would survive better. And you would see them become more and more like that venomous or whatever poisonous organism. Herbivory, the only thing I wanted to show you here, or herbivory just means organisms that eat, like herbivores. So they don't eat herbivores. They are herbivores. So they eat plants. So basically it's just showing you that herbivores can drive the selection here, where you have all these trichomes, those little hairs on this little plant. The more trichomes they have, the better able they are to survive. And so the presence of herbivores can cause increase in trichomes on plants. Okay. And then we have symbiosis. This is a big one. Make sure you know all three types. I'm sure you already do, actually. Mutualism, positive. Everybody wins. If you haven't looked up farmer ants, and then you should. I'm actually not. This is not farmer ants. This is acacia tree. But look up farmer ants because that's the coolest thing ever. And then clownfish anemone. Everybody wins. If you're not sure how that works as mutualism, look it up. Parasitism, my favorite one is like worms and dogs. And then we have mistletoe on our trees. Mistletoe is actually a parasite. It'll suck the tree dry eventually. We're not going to watch that. Commensalism is a positive zero interaction, which means it helps one and it doesn't do anything to the other. Basically, any type of camouflage, in my opinion, is considered commensalism. And nests, the tree provides a nesting space. Commensalism is sometimes thought of as a myth. Like, is it really a relationship? It's hard to say. And then we don't need to know that. Okay. Facilitation is not something we need to know. We've already worked through diversity. We are going to work through trophic structure. You're going to read a lot of that on your own. You're going to do keystone species next Wednesday. And food chains, food webs should be simple for you. So basically that's all you need to get for today. I did ask you if you'd look through that module 2. Module 1, we should be pretty much complete. I think there were 2 things in that module. I'm talking about the self-study modules that are in Unit 6 resources module. You'll want to make sure 1 and 2 are familiar with you, and we'll do 3 next week. Okay. I'm sorry this is so late. I hope that helps you to have a better understanding of relationships. If you need to go back and rewatch, you can do so. I'll see you soon.